Welcome, everyone, to the Equipment Recommendations for Streaming webinar. That's a mouthful. We need to get a longer title next time.
Yeah,
Thanks so
always.
much. Thanks so much for being here. We do these webinars usually every month, and it's brought to you by streamingchurch.tv. And we're so glad that you are with us today. We're going to cover a lot of ground here, but we're going to get through it pretty quick. But we will have some Q&A towards the end of this webinar, and you can always chat. You can always type in the chat your questions even right now about equipment or about anything, I guess. Maybe you can talk about Super Bowl or something later. But the bottom line is here, we will try to get you some good information here, and we'll answer your questions when we get the opportunity here at the end. So we are glad that you are with us today. Thank you so much for being with us. And let's just kind of move in here and keep going. Let's introduce our wonderful people here today. Mr. Steve Lacey, tell us about yourself. Who are you?
Hi, Steve Lacey. Good morning. Founder and CEO of StreamingChurch.tv and one of the chief technical guys behind Streaming Church.
All right. You are the founder and you're the guy. Mr. Michael Gray.
Hey, I do support and marketing for streamingchurch.tv and uh, love chatting with you guys on Sundays.
Yeah, he's usually the Sunday morning guy, usually. Sometimes you get me. And speaking of me, I'm Phil Thompson, and I also do tech support and customer care, as Steve says, and all
Customer
of us here,
success.
customer success. All right, yeah, we change that every time. But honestly, we've all been involved in ministry for a long time. Michael and I have been on staff at churches, and I was a senior pastor. Steve's never been a senior pastor, but he's been involved in leadership teams in local churches and all that. And really, that's how Streaming Church was born, organically out of the local church. All right, so let's move on here. So what are we going to discuss today? Well, we're going to talk about equipment, but we're also going to talk about, how to go about getting the equipment you want, like defining goals and considering your budget. We'll talk about the size of your church, how that factors in when it comes to equipment. We'll talk about some tech expertise or lack of it. Again, something that's very important when it comes to purchasing equipment for streaming video, styles of your services. That factors in, and your other equipment needs. Your team input is actually very important, and we'll cover. Did I miss something there? I guess not. So we'll cover all these things and try to give you a good, well-balanced perspective on things. Steve, let's talk about goals.
So the number one thing with goals is, what do you want to achieve with your streaming? I mean, there's going to be some different variations based on the nature of your church and where you want to go. Maybe you want to grow your church. Maybe you want to reach younger generation, reach new people. Maybe it's just addressing the needs of those that are homebound. So there's going to be some different styles of streaming per se and some different equipment recommendations. But the number one thing is you want to identify what are your goals for your ministry. And then we're going to put together a recipe accordingly.
All right, and we certainly will. And speaking of which, let's talk about the budget.
Yeah. So
Yes.
number
Yeah.
one constraint is budget. So you have your goals on the ends of where I want to be, and then your constraints come on the other side. And the budget is, a lot of people default to how much money do I have in the bank account so that I can move forward. But your budget also has to do with your existing assets that you may have and people that you have available to serve and that sort of thing. So you want to be realistic, do your research. The other thing is, and we always encourage this, we always encourage to get in the game, and in getting in the game means starting small and growing from there. You're going to want to do that. So you want to add some margin so that you can grow down the road. So that's probably the best way to get into this as we get into this thing further, is to step into it, get some experience, and then move forward. So consider your future, and then include, obviously, your leadership team. They're probably going to be on the side of setting some of the budgets. So
Absolutely. Michael, when it comes to equipment recommendations, you definitely need to consider a lot of things. And I have the caution size matters here, but let's jump into this. What should we consider when it comes to equipment recommendations?
Well, Phil, I know you and I have set up multiple churches with tech in the past, and there's a lot to consider. The facilities, do you have a big, long, skinny worship center? Is it big and wide? Is it circular? I mean, all of those things really impact more sound than anything, but as well, where can you position cameras? Flooring. When we were first opening up the church I was on staff with, we were going to have a painted cement floor, and that's not great for sound.
No.
Echo chamber, just echo. You hear every little pin drop kind of thing. So again, very important. You may need to put some rugs down or do something about your flooring. Are you going to be a single camera or a multiple camera? If so, then you're going to need a switcher to control that. The size of a congregation, and where, again, you can position cameras and speakers and everything else. Audio, we're going to get deeper into that a little bit later. It's incredibly important. In fact, audio is probably more important than video in the context of what people will tolerate online. And then lighting. Lighting will control how good a camera you have to have. More lighting, you don't have to have as expensive a camera. Less lighting, you have to have a more expensive camera. And then your equipment needs are obviously going to vary huge based
Yeah.
on all of these and then more.
Yeah. Michael, do you remember when you came out to Kansas with Jeff Love to visit me? Do you remember my facility at my church? Do you remember how
Yeah, I remember that.
long and
Yep,
narrow it
yeah.
was? That
Long
was
and
an old,
narrow.
yeah, that was an old Army barracks
Yep.
facility that because we were by Fort Riley, Kansas. We're in Junction City, and it was a long, narrow, long,
Yep.
narrow
A
building.
tunnel. Yep. A
And
tunnel. I've been in a few more of those too.
yeah, it was definitely interesting. Let's move on here a little bit. These are important things to consider. So, where are we going here? Let's give a little example here, just so Steve was talking about budget and those kind of things. Let's give you an example. This is just this is a real life example. No, it's not really. It's not real life, but it's Michael Gray's Church of Fun. Michael doesn't have a church of fun, but if he did, it would be Michael Gray's
If I
Church of
did,
Fun. And so let's have a fictitious example here. Michael, let's say he has 100 members. He used to have 500, but he scared them off. And
I did.
then he's got a decent website. Okay, it's okay, and he's got a satisfactory camera. In other words, the camera's okay. It does all right for what it is. He's got a Gen Z tech person. We don't know who that is or what that is, but we just thought we'd throw that in there. And then there's one camera person for the one camera that's satisfactory, by the way. And then he has a 4-year-old Mac. That's not his son, that's actually a computer. And he's been streaming on Facebook with limited results, as we have found that to be the case. And his goal, he wants to reach new people who will eventually attend in person. And his budget is a measly $4,000. So let's just jump into this. This is the example. Here's our recommendation for the example. And by the way, can I just say this right now that there's going to be differences of opinion among this team right here on things to recommend. Okay,
Yes.
we had a little discussion about this too, but so some of this is my recommendation because I put this thing together. But there are differences of opinion, and that's okay. And we'll get into that. All right, so here's our recommendations for Michael's Church of Fun. We recommend that he stream to his website. Why do we recommend that he stream to his website, Steve?
Well, if you want to grow your church, the in-person attendance, you need to be able to establish some relationships and be able to do some ministry, get to know some people. So that's going to be more effectively done on your church hub site, your church website, which would be their hub for your ministry. So this is where, everyone goes to get, help or resources from the church. And so you want to stick your live stream there as well. That's where people can do ministry.
Yeah, absolutely. We would recommend, or at least I would, and I think we agree with this, use the satisfactory camera, the one that works okay. And then my recommendation, take it or leave it, would be to get a couple PTZ cameras. And the ones I'm recommending here, yeah, I'm just throwing out a number here, but 2,500 for two of them. Now that's probably the lower end, maybe, but we have a PTZ that we'll recommend later. But this is something that could work for his church. He's only got 100 people, and he'll probably have less by the time this is done. But I'm sorry, I can't help. We encourage him to use the OBS Live Encoder. It's free. It's open source software, and you just find one at obsproject.com. So it's not going to kick into his budget. We encourage him to use a streaming video service, and there's different prices out there. Here's kind of a medium price of $1,500 a year. There's less expensive ones and there's more expensive ones. So we encourage him to do that. And that, if you add all that up, is a total budget of $4,000. Voila. So that's just an example. Now your example is going to vary, right? You're going to have different things, but this is just a little idea here. Okay. All right. I'll just move on here. Equipment recommendations as we talk here. Michael, you mentioned this when we were talking earlier, your ISP. Why is that important?
Well, I get to deal with that a lot on Sundays. And so often I get the call and it's buffering due to upload issues, and a lot of things can be impacting your quality of your internet service. So we've got to explore that first when we begin to have issues, but reliability and quality are critical to get a good constant stream out. People will not tolerate on the internet if you're losing signal and doing that kind of thing on a regular basis. They'll just bail and they won't come back. So make sure you make good friends with your internet service provider and you're getting the best quality that you can get. Cable or above, if at all possible. Fiber is awesome if you've got it in your area, but highest quality you can afford.
Yeah, and by the way, I know there's other stuff out there, DSL, maybe you can't get cable. I was talking to one of our customers last week, and they were using satellite, and they get just tremendous upload speeds.
Yeah,
and
some
tremendous
some of
downloads.
them are amazing, and we also have people who are streaming from a phone. It's not recommended, but it can work in certain situations.
Yeah, but so the recommendation here is really do your research and try to get the very best possible, because that's so important. All right, let's boogie on here. Talking about stuff like this, content delivery networks. Michael, take this one if you would. It's important to get the right one.
Yeah, same thing, quality and stability. But this is the person who's providing your streaming. So, for instance, us, streamingchurch.tv, you want to make sure you have quality, reliability, experience, or in many cases, actually have customer service.
Yeah.
So a human you can talk to. That's a big deal. Make sure you have good data and analytics so that you know what's going on. I was working with the church just this week, and they were wanting to go with a really giant upload bandwidth. But we looked at their data, and they were over 70% tablet and phone use. So you don't need a giant signal if your users are streaming from a phone and watching your service from a phone. You want to make sure you cater to that largest audience with a signal that works. Analytics, very important. And then ministry features, what serves a church better. You can get CDNs that are not church-based that'll provide you streaming, but they're not going to be focused on what it means to help people along in their journey of joining your church and following God.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let me move on here and let's talk a little bit about encoding software and hardware. So live encoders, you got to have a live encoder to do streaming video. There's hardware and there's software. And we did do a webinar on this back in the old days of 2023. We did a webinar on software encoders. If you want to look that up later, that was back in May. And May 16th, I believe. And then we did a hardware webinar, hardware encoding webinar in June 15th. And you can find those. We'll give you an address where you can find those. You can just go to streamingchurch.tv/resources, but we'll get to that in a moment. So hardware versus software encoders. So what do we recommend? Well, as we said in that webinar we had done in the past, you have software, usually less expensive, usually more customizable, usually pretty easy to set up. They're a little slower when they come to encoding. The hardware is usually more expensive. They're less customizable in some cases. They're mostly more reliable. And that's because you put your software on a computer and the computer may have stuff going on and other issues happening, but the hardware encoder is like a box. It's its own little computer, so to speak. And it's all it does is live encoding, where your computer may do some other things and may cause some issues. So they can be more reliable and they can usually be faster at encoding. And let's talk about the computer stuff. Here, the computer side, PC, you can use a Windows computer to do your streaming. We recommend a desktop. You can use a laptop, but you really should use a desktop. Why should they use a desktop, Steve Lacy?
Well, the desktop, we're going to get into graphics cards and things like that. And it's just easier to upgrade and deal with. So you can mix and match and swap things out of a desktop much more easily than you can with a laptop. Typically, you're looking to go buy another laptop. Laptop has the advantage that it fits well in the sound booth, but the desktops are typically going to be a little more suited for, you can kind of build them up to stream with.
Yeah. Hope you don't mind me asking for your input here. I just feel like you're being left out so far, so I want to make sure people know you're here. So I threw up some stats here, and here's or not some stats, but some what do we call these numbers? Some things that you might want to have. Recommendations of the processors and stuff. Now, look, here's another one where we kind of disagreed on. This is kind of the best. Okay, the stuff I have up here, the 6-core, this goes more towards on the high side, memory 8 gig, graphics card, hard drive, solid state drive, but you don't have to have these, okay? But it just depends on what you're trying to do and all the encoding you're doing and how much you're getting into. But this is something where if you have something like this, you're probably not going to have too many problems. But you could get less. You could get by with less, right?
Yeah, I think it's just a ploy so you don't have to do as much customer support, right? So if people are buying the really good hardware, and then they're going to have less problems. They got more margin.
Yeah,
so,
that's it. That's the key word there, margin. So, take this with a grain of salt. It would certainly be something. Let's look at the Mac. You can do the Mac Apple. Steve's a big Mac guy here, right, Steve? You like Macs, don't you? So does Michael. I do too, but I don't have any more. And the one somebody gave me died. So, here's another recommendation. The CPU and all that stuff. Again, take it with a grain of salt. You get by a little less. But hey, if you get something like this, you won't have any problems, right?
And just a reminder, these are if you're going to go the software encoder route, because you're going to need to run a software encoder on a computer. So these are some recommendations from some of the more popular ones.
Yeah, if you have a hardware encoder, you don't have to have this.
Right. And the other consideration is Mac versus PC. Some software encoders do not work on Mac, like
namely vMix. Yeah,
we love vMix, but we wish they were on Mac.
Yeah, and speaking of vMix, let's jump into some of these, Mr. Steve Lacy. Let's talk about software encoders, because you have to, if you have a software encoder, you have to put them on a computer. So let's talk about some of these. What's this one here?
So we picked kind of our top 3 that we have people that have experience with, and number one on the shoot is vMix. One of the advantages of vMix is it's very affordable. They have a 60-day free trial. Actually, our software encoder webinar we did in, was it May? Featured one of the reps from vMix. So vMix is going to allow multiple camera inputs, and you're going to be able to do switching as well as encoding and streaming. And and one of the limitations with vMix is PC only, as we talked about earlier. Another one, the guys that have been around probably the longest, maybe, I'm not sure. I think these guys have been around for a very long time. Wirecast, and they just switched their model. They have, for the life of them, up until, I'm not sure how recently, maybe a year or so ago, they went from the one-time purchase model with upgrades to the monthly deal. So they're pushing a monthly subscription for their software. So $35 a month. And it is Mac and PC and does the switching as well as the encoding. And then OBS. OBS has been around. It's kind of grown up in the gamer world. It's open source. It's very robust. And it is available on any platform, including my Ubuntu computers. So Mac, PC, and Linux.
Ubuntu.
And so it is very capable, multiple inputs allowed for cameras, but one of the limitations is it's going to send just one stream for you.
Yeah, that's right.
The one
So,
destination.
so of course, if you're going to do software encoders, as we've said before, and use one of these, you cannot just plug your camera directly into your computer. You need something like this, a video capture device for software encoders. What's this all about, Steve?
So we have, and there's a plethora of options here, down from some less than $50 deals that will take your video output, which is either HDMI, and feed it into a USB port or one of the other ports in your camera. We like these guys. We like, this is kind of a middle of the road, and we have had great experiences with the Magewell. We debate on how you pronounce that as well. Not sure who's right, but this will take the input, an HDMI input, and convert it to the USB 3 for plugging into your computer. This one it just works. So
Yeah.
this comes on our recommendation list as one of the higher ones. So
Yeah, you don't have to download any drivers for this, and then they make different models for this. So if you have more than one camera, you can use this. It's just a little tiny little device
yeah.
that fits in the palm of
And
your hand. But they do have, Magewell also has cards that you can drop into your desktop computers as well.
yes,
So
yep.
there's lots of options here, and as Michael has said in the past too, there's cheap ones that you don't want to get at all from different companies, and
Yes.
there's more expensive ones, and so but we
Yes.
do like Magewell, but that's just our
Yep.
recommendation. All right, hardware encoder. I guess I'll talk about this. So again, a little controversial here between the team. But if I was going to recommend an encoder, I would probably recommend a hardware encoder these days. 10, 15 years ago, I didn't, but now I do. And this is one of my favorites. It's the Epiphan Pearl Nano, and it's not the cheapest. It's about $2,000, but it's got a lot of features in it. So Epiphan, the reason I recommend Epiphan, and they have 2 or 3 different models now, is I like the customer support. And
Yeah.
you can talk to them on the phone, you can chat with them. They're based here. Well, they're based, I think, in Canada. I think they have an office in California, but they're up in Toronto area, I think. And they're just good people. And we've known some of the people that work there. And it's a hardware encoder, right?
And we have ministries have been using them for a long time.
Yeah.
So we don't hear from them too often.
We don't, So
Nope.
I've got here's some of the features on the side, which I won't get into, but you can always Google Epiphan Pearl Nano. And there's other hardware encoders out there. And there's a couple that we have our eye on that we think have some potential. The Blackmagic A10 is not one that we like, but it's okay. Some people, and by the way, if you have questions about any of this stuff, you can put it in the chat right now. We're going to do a Q&A here at the very end. just about here. And so if you want to chat and ask questions, we'll do that because there are other encoders out there. All right, what am I doing here next? Let's keep going here and let's talk about some very quickly, some other things you might need for streaming video. You might want to use a digital encoder, digital switcher. And you don't necessarily have to have one of these. If you had Wirecast or vMix or something like that, that you can do switching from those software encoders. But the Roland is a good name. Roland's been around for a long time, and this is more of a middle of the road Roland video switcher. And there's some of the features that they have. You can always just Google Roland, but they're quality stuff, and people that usually have them like them. So the digital video switcher. Now let's get into the favorite topic, and that is cameras. Well, as Steve likes to say, when somebody says, what kind of a camera should I get? Well, that's like asking, what kind of a car should I get? It depends on your budget. It depends on your needs. It depends on what you're trying to do, your goals. And there's lots of different cameras out there. I like the PTZ, and I like PTZ Optics, the company PTZ Optics, because again, good customer support. We know Stephen Haywood pretty well, and they're very helpful. And I would seriously consider a PTZ Optics camera. There's different prices. Steve, did you want to say something, or Mike?
I was just going to jump in because one of the guys we follow put together his kind of his Oprah list, and that's Brady Shearer. So if you're a bit exposed, he just recently put together a couple of YouTubes. One was of if money was no object, here's the cameras I'd choose. And then he went through some budget ones as well. So just a shout out to if you want to dig deeper. And he serves the church as well. And so
Brady
he has some
Shearer.
favorites. These are Brady Shearer and this is Phil's and Streaming Church's favorite is the PTZ Optics Move. I've actually worked with them in the past as well.
Yeah. And there's different prices on this, but there's lots of reasons why we like PTZ and PTZ Optics, especially the company. But, you get a lot of tracking and those kind of things. They're easy to use. You could set 2 or 3 of them up and have one person with what is it, a joystick or something, to run the whole thing. So, there's other ones out there, but this is one of them.
And you can, we moved this route at our church as well. So I'm the video switcher guy at our church, but I sit next to the camera operator. And one of the really nice things about PTZs is it gives you multiple angles, and you can pre-program a bunch of shots. So you can just go in and say, I want, the bass player, the drummer, the pastor speaking, whatever it may be, and you can switch between these shots. So it makes you look really professional. With a bunch of opportunities for a bunch of different shots.
Yeah. And we're always open to talking. You can always reach out to us later, and we can talk about your different needs and different things. So there are other options out there. Very quickly, as Michael Gray mentioned earlier, audio is so important when it comes to streaming video. And the only thing I would say here is don't get cheap microphones. Get yourself some quality microphones. I picked this one out. That's a Shure wireless. There's more expensive ones, but I wouldn't go too much cheaper than this. And a bottom line is you want good, clean audio. And again, lots of different microphones out there, lots of different options, but I like this one. I've got some experience with this one, and it works pretty well. Yeah.
I remember we at one point were having a service, and I'm the church online pastor, and I'm chatting with everybody. And our microphone started picking up a radio station, and it was a cheaper mic, not the best mic that we probably wished we had. And we soon upgraded very quickly after that because audio, people will leave your stream because of audio before anything else.
Yeah, it's
much more important than video. They'll put up with some bad video, but if they can't understand what's going on, they're out of there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about feeding audio into your live encoder for streaming. Here's one of the things I do not recommend. None of us do here. Don't take the audio from your camera and go into your live encoder. In other words, some of these cameras have little microphones, on them, and they're nice if you're walking around interviewing people. but don't do that because you're going to get all this other sound. People are coughing, sneezing, talking about the pastor behind his back while he's preaching. You're going to pick up all that stuff. Well, people wouldn't do that, would they? But you know what I'm getting at is people are going to pick up different things, and so that audio, that little microphone, is going to be a problem. So don't, look, if that's all you got, then go for it. But please consider, upgrading that. And so don't use audio from your camera. Here's just a little illustration here. Take your mixing board, your mixing audio board, and send it to your computer, or which is where your software encoder is, or even your hardware encoder. Send it from your mixer directly into the live encoder, whatever live encoder you use. Now, look, there's various ways to do that, right? This is just one example.
And this, when you say audio mixes, this is your house sound mixer. And a lot of churches will send from their house sound mixer over to a web mixer and then to the encoder. So
strongly
go the
recommend
extra
that.
mile. Yeah.
Especially for music, you need to remix it for the web because it's different if you can.
Yeah. There is no, bass is a key consideration on the web because you're not getting the reverbs off the walls that you're getting in the house.
No, that's an excellent point. Yeah. Yeah. What you hear in the house sound is not going to be what you hear on the internet. People are not, it's going to be different. And as you mentioned, music can be a big factor there and other things. So you definitely want to monitor your audio, but you don't want to take it from your camera. You want to get it somehow from the audio mixer, and as these guys just alluded to, maybe even mixing it again for the live stream. But we can talk about that in a future deal. All right. So Michael, talk about equipment for streaming. What else do we need here?
Well, you need really, really good lighting. And here's the great thing about lighting. Because of LED, it's gotten really, really cheap. What used to would have cost you thousands and thousands of dollars, you can now get for much less and get a really good lighting experience. The better your lights are, the more dynamic and detail your cameras are going to be able to capture for your live stream. So you can get good lighting, which isn't really expensive to do, and not have to have a really expensive camera. If your lighting is really poor, it's going to force you to spend more money on a camera in order to get a high quality visual experience. There's lots of lighting available, and on all of these recommendations we're making here, a lot of them we're saying, this is the wish list that we're talking about here. There's lots and lots of variety to choose from. I would say whenever you're doing this, go to Autorama, and I'm not plugging them. We're not connected to them, but they have great reviews. And people like you will have said, hey, this doesn't work because of this, or this works great because of this. Read through those reviews and make sure you're buying something that other people like you have said thumbs up, or then don't buy it if they say thumbs down.
Yeah. Okay. So Steve, let's move on here. Yeah, lighting's important, but let's talk a little bit about something else you would definitely want to have when it comes to streaming video.
So you definitely want a streaming platform where you can do church online. So you want we recommend that your church website is your hub of all of your ministry activity, and you want to draw people from the spokes, which would be social media and other elements, into the hub, but you want to bring them in the hub to a central place where you can do ministry. So you want a platform that's going to integrate well with your church website. You're going to want one that provides support 7 days a week. We sometimes get those support calls for those. I can't get Facebook working. What's going on? What's Facebook? So you're not going to get much help from Facebook or YouTube. Also, you want to have some analytics that are geared toward doing ministry online. So some things that are more focused around what you track, things like first timers and repeat visitors and that sort of thing, as well as some exclusive ministry tools. So We're showing an example of our platform. This next slide here, I think, has some more, but it's the idea here, as Mike pointed out at another time, is you want to be able to do relationship online. So you want to put together some tools that will foster the ability to do relationships. So things like chat, who's online, um, the ability to interact with people, pray privately with people, and just do ministry online so you can get to know the people. Because there's not sure what the stats are, but I know at our church we had a group from our new member class, and they asked everyone, how did you find out about Alive? How did they all had been now attending in person, committed to membership, going through the membership class. And 80% of the people said, I watched online before I came in person because I wanted to check it out. I wanted to find out what the people are like, what the ministry was like. And if you can't connect with people, they'll get a feel for what the video looks like, but they won't know what the people are like. So
Yeah.
put together, make sure you're using a platform. We have one, and there's others out there as well that will allow you to do ministry online.
Yeah, there's other ones. Church Online has a platform as well. And so this is just one example. So speaking of choosing a streaming provider, that's one of the things you've got to have if you're going to do streaming video. You need a streaming provider. And you want something that's going to be simple to set up and use. You want something that probably has some mobile apps available and some website integration, as Steve mentioned earlier. You want to have it on your website. It would be good to be able to be streaming on Roku and Apple TV as you stream to your website, because people do watch Roku and they do watch Apple TV. You certainly want ministry related features because you're a ministry, you're a church, you're trying to reach people, and you want features that are going to connect with other people. In this age of AI, automated ministry tools are very important and they can be very useful. You want some personal assistance as well. You don't want to be out there alone and trying to make this stuff work on your own. And you want to make sure that whatever provider you have or you decide to go with, they have some plans, different plans to choose from. Because again, you may have a unique ministry, you may have something a little different, you may require a different plan. If only we knew somebody that provided all these things. Oh, wait, it's streamingchurch.tv. Yeah, this is self-glossing, folks, but we're going to promote ourselves because we believe in ourselves. We have a 30-day free trial and we have affordable plans and no obligation. All right. So, but you get what we're trying to say here, right? Is you want to make sure you have some help here when you're doing streaming video. We have other stuff that we can talk about. We have an equipment list that gives you good, better, best, and you can get that equipment list right now if you want. But stick around for the webinar because we got a Q&A coming up right now. But you can go to streamingchurch.tv/resources and you can sign up for the equipment list, and we'll give you and we'll be glad to talk to you about it and help you through it. All right. Some things we do. We have our webinars every month. Just go to webinar.streamingchurch.tv. We have a blog that we have every week, blog.streamingchurch.tv. We have the Church Solutions podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, we do fun and exciting topics on that. We have streaming video for churches, as I just plugged earlier. Coming up, as Lester Holt would say, 12 tips to a successful streaming Easter service. We want to get a longer title there. We're working on it, but we'll go with this one. 12 tips for a successful streaming Easter service. That is coming up because Easter is right around the corner. We're going to do it March 12th at 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And so be sure and sign up for that. You can sign up for that probably later today and reserve your seat. So you got questions? We've got answers, or at least we think we do. You can type them in the chat right now. Gentlemen, do we have any questions that people might have?
Yeah, there's one.
Go ahead, Steve.
It's just Kevin has asked, what are the benefits of a 2-camera setup as opposed to a single camera? And the answer would be,
know the answer?
yes, as I kind of mentioned earlier, as we're going through, having the ability to have more than one camera setup is just going to give a different perspective. One of the things that people, if you watch TV, people are very, you don't recognize this, but people are very impatient and they'll get bored very quickly. So one camera shot for an hour, hour and a half, or however long your service is can weigh on people. So just having another camera or another angle to go to really kind of lightens the load, and being able to switch back and forth, it really creates a more interesting experience online.
Viewer fatigue. That's if you just
Yep.
have one camera. I mean,
Yep.
hey,
Yep.
if that's all you got, then that's okay. But you might want to consider,
Yep.
you know, something else, right?
And
I
yeah,
got one from Steve, the other Steve, Steve Bonds. Talk about the ATEM Mini Pro. What are the negatives? That's pretty easy. I know we all know that one. It is
Well,
not volunteer friendly.
yeah,
It's probably, in our estimation, the hardest hardware encoder to set up.
yeah, it's very affordable. And once you get it set up, I think it works well for people as well. So those are on the positive side. Um, it's not, it's, it's like, it's on the other end of the spectrum from our Magewell video capture device where you just plug it in and it works. This is kind of, you plug it in, you figure it out, you get the manual out, you do some work. It might work. We're actually working with a customer right now that has been struggling with his ATEM for several weeks. And it's probably not the ATEM's fault. It may be his internet service provider's fault, but it doesn't help that it's not the most, all his other encoders that he has in his facility are working, but the ATEM's not. So
yeah, it's kind of a weird deal, but yeah,
yeah.
it's just not real user friendly. I mean, at least setting it up. Yeah, once you get it set up, and we'll help you. If you have one or you're going to get one, we'll help you. We'll help you do it. And it's you know, it's just not our favorite. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. And as the weekend guy, if you have a volunteer running that, I will say it's easy to turn on in the stream. But if something happens and we have to go into the diagnostics and the file, XML file, it's not volunteer friendly. It's going to have to be somebody who knows how it was set up to begin with that's dealing with it at that point.
Yeah, it's a little challenging. And their customer support is not very good. Blackmagic ATEM, their customer support is not great. So that's something
Right.
else to think about. That's why we recommended Epiphan, because they had good customer support. Another question.
Yep, couple from Steve there. Good
All right.
ones.
Yeah.
Really good ones.
I don't
How
know the
many?
percentage. I don't know the percentage of dedicated stream soundboard. I don't know what the percentage is.
We wished it was 100%, but
Yeah.
and we
I don't know.
didn't say on this. We have used $100 soundboard to remix web
Yeah.
audio. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a large. There are just certain channels that you're going to need to focus on that you want to feed to that web board to remix. But how, Phil? How do you send from the main board to the stream board?
Well, it's just a cable. There on your audio mixing boards, they all have, out. So there's an out, a sound out, aux
Aux
out. There you
out.
go, aux out.
Yep.
Yeah. And I was in radio for years, and everybody thought because I was in radio, I could mix sound. No, I couldn't. But yeah, your aux, you come out, you got to get a channel coming out, and you would go into another little mixer. And then from there, it goes into your live encoder. And you really need to monitor this. I mean, this is various ways to do this. Headphones, yes, but also when the stream is live, you need to be able to monitor the live audio with the live video. And that's so important. And you're going to have a 30-second delay or so to make adjustments, but you just got to, you get used to it. I mean, Mark Small was really good at it at our church
Yep.
where I used to be.
Yeah, it's really good.
Tony Harrison's good. He's no longer there, but you just have to really develop an ear for it and listen to it and monitor it. All right, what else we got going here? Can testify hard for one person to manage both audio. It is
Boy,
challenging. It is
isn't it
challenging.
ever?
It is
That's a
challenging.
lot.
It's
That's a lot.
and that's why one of the things we, when we recommended PTZ cameras, one person can pretty much run a 2 or 3 PTZ cameras or more. So it's, you're short on volunteers. We know that. We understand that. But audio
Yeah,
is
but
so
that can
important.
help with that.
Yeah.
One of the other things I want to encourage you guys, when I was a church online pastor years ago, a lot of this technology didn't exist, and I would have done anything to be able to talk to Phil or Steve or our tech support and just walk through, hey, we're thinking about buying this. Tell me what are the positive and what are the negatives. It would have saved me making some equipment purchases that really were difficult after we purchased them. If I had been able to run it by somebody that had already done it and made the mistakes, and so please reach out, chat, call, message,
Yeah.
email, call, smoke signal, whatever you need to do. We'd love to talk to you. We're not going to sell you, but we'll certainly have some information for you to help you make a much better informed decision.
Question here about talking about ProPresenter 7. We're having a guest on tomorrow. We're going to record it tomorrow, the Church Solutions podcast. So it'll probably be available Thursday. And we're going to talk to Paul Allen Clifford, who is an expert on ProPresenter 7. And he's going to address some of this stuff. But ProPresenter 7, they now have the ability to stream. And it will work with us with streamingchurch.tv. And if you want to catch that podcast, it's available anywhere you get your podcast. It will be available probably Thursday afternoon, where Paul talks about ProPresenter 7. But I've used ProPresenter, but not ProPresenter 7. I like ProPresenter. I do like
it. Good product.
Yeah, I do like it a lot. And you can stream with it as well. So just got to make sure you have enough resources on your computer, your CPU and stuff. All right. Any other questions before we go away here?
Oh, we didn't catch did we catch Chandler? Is it recommended to mix stream from a separate space? Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Needs to be a quiet space where you can, as Phil said, listen to the post-encoded sound that's live that everybody who is tuning in online is hearing. That's the one you need to hear, because that's what you have to adjust for.
Yeah.
What we did at our church is we set up a separate room that all of the online production occurs in, and it's outside the sanctuary. So yeah, that's I guess an optimum setup. So we get the video switching and the camera operator. Actually, the camera operators are not even for the remote cameras are not in the facility. They are not in the worship sanctuary. They're outside
You
of it.
could, if your setup was very limited, you could do it in the same area, but you would definitely have to have headphones on.
Yeah.
And it would be really quirky because you're going to be on about a 30-second delay from the encoded service.
All right. Well, I think we're good here, guys. If you have any questions, you can always reach us. Just go to streamingchurch.tv. You can chat with us live. If we're not there, you can still chat and we'll get the message. We sure appreciate everybody taking some time out to be a part of our webinar today. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next webinar. Just remember, just go to webinar.streamingchurch.tv. We'll have the new one coming up probably later today, and you can always look at the past webinars. And again, just go to webinar.streamingchurch.tv. There's a little button there to click on past webinars. And hey, you can get yourself up to date on some things and reach out to us anytime. So on behalf of Michael Gray and Mr. Steve Lacey, I'm Phil Thompson. Thank you for spending some time with us today. We'll catch you again next time. Take care of yourselves and each other. Hasta luego.